Hello crafty cuties and welcome to the very first junk trunk kit tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how I created this junk journal using things from the kit mixed with some paper from a 12 by 12 pad. So again, most everything is from the kit. Now if you just purchased the tutorial, thank you so much and I hope this tutorial was easy for you. I used mostly basic supplies, keeping it rather simple so you can take this and decorate and make it your own. And let's get right in. So I like to start with my covers. So I have my supplies out. I don't end up using everything, but the base of our journal is going to be a manila envelope. Now, if you received the kit, yours will already be scored, and if not, I will give you the measurements so that you can score your own. I'll be using a piece of muslin fabric. I have this gorgeous botanical page that I've been hoarding, but the kits did come with a botanical page or two in the kit. And of course, none of these journals, they're not going to end up looking the same. Every journal is going to look different. I have my binding templates printed to make it easy and all for punching holes. Some metal book corners, which I don't end up using, buttons, glue, scissors, and my charm rings. And I've also included a supply list to help you gather the materials that you need before making your journal. I am going to glue the inside flap down because I'm not going to be utilizing this pocket, but in the other junk journal tutorial that I do, I'll show you how you can do that. So I'm just going to take my Tombow glue and glue that down. You can take that little metal piece off if it's something that bothers you, but I end up covering the inside and it's just not really a big deal. It doesn't stick out much at all, so glue that down. And then I am going to start out by covering with fabric. Now, if you did not get the kit, I will show you where you need to make your score marks. You are going to need to score at 5.5 inches in and 6.5 inches in. That's going to give us a 1-inch spine. These envelopes are not exactly 12 inches, which meant that after I scored all of them, I noticed that it was a little bit off, but it wasn't enough to, be a problem, but keep that in mind. So I am just going to take some muslin fabric here, and again, this is just a little bit bigger than the envelope, and I'm going to use my Tombow glue and just start by gluing the spine first, and then I kind of rub the glue in with my finger as I go, just to smooth everything out and make sure that it is coated really well. You don't have to cover your envelope with fabric. It's just something that I like to do. You guys probably know that I love using fabric on my journals. And this is actually going to partially get covered up anyways. So you could either just decorate the manila envelope cover as it is, or you could cover with paper. It is totally preference. This is just how I like to make journals. So I'm just going to continue gluing here. The thing that I love about sharing tutorials like this, and especially about making these kits, is that it is so much fun to see how everyone can take the same ideas, but create something that's going to look so different in the end. It is just such a fun part to me. I decided to go ahead and speed this part up. I do want to make sure that I spend more time on the actual techniques, so you'll see that I speed some things up throughout, especially the decorating portions of my journal making, because whether or not I show you guys different ways that I like to decorate, that's something that you are probably going to do differently. It's going to be very unique to you and to your style. But of course, I like to show you little bits and pieces so that you can get inspiration and ideas. So I'm just going to go ahead now and wrap that fabric around the edges. As you can see, I'm just doing one side at a time. I just cover it pretty generously in glue, and then I will fold it over. And I didn't do anything special to the corners for this one because the fabric's pretty thin and it just folds over really nicely actually. So I will just continue folding the edges over, and then now you have your manila envelope covered in fabric. Here's a little tip if you're looking for a sturdier cover. You can take a heavy cardstock and simply place it inside the manila envelope before you do your decorating, and just go ahead and rescore those fold marks or refold them, and you will have a very sturdy cover. I didn't decide to do that because I don't find it to be a problem. So now I am going to start decorating. I decided to go ahead and just tear the edges off around that image to make it the size I need. I like the torn look, and then I go ahead and ink up the edges with some brown, inexpensive ink. I also inked up the edges of the journal cover, just right there on that fabric. The thing I love about the muslin fabric is that it's so easy to dye. I'm going ahead and placing the things I want on my cover just to get an idea before I make it permanent. And I know that I definitely want to glue the main image down, so I add my glue and I spread it out with my fingers just to avoid any wrinkling or, I don't know, I just find that smoothing it out makes it great. Now I'm going to glue one of the buttons on before I start to sew it on with my thread and needle. And I just keep it super simple. I'm just going to sew it right through the cover since I do plan to cover the inside of the cover. And I use that same thread and needle to sew on the second button. I think that adding buttons to a cover is such a nice touch. Now I'm using my hot glue to go ahead and glue on a strip of lace on the outside right by the spine. Now I'm going to punch the hole for my charm ring. You can use the template that is included in the kit, or you can just measure 1/2 inch down and make sure that it's right in the middle, which is about 1/2 inch in on each side. Again, I'm using the template just because it makes things as perfect as can be. I line up that template on the middle spine and poke the hole where the charm hole is. And then you can go ahead and take your ring fastener and just pull the 2 prongs down straight. I like to add a little dot of glue right before I do that, and you can push it in through the hole. Of course, you don't have to add a charm ring. I just like the look of it. And I know that I'm going to cover the inside of the journal, so that's why I like to add the charm ring at that point. As I mentioned earlier, I chose a 12 by 12 paper pad that I wanted to use to mix in with the items that come with the kit, the more basic items. And I am going to be using this cranberry Christmas paper pad. I can't get enough of Christmas. So I am going to just go ahead and pick a couple prints that I like for the inside cover. Now, if you don't want to use a paper pad, I'm just showing you here that this is one of my printouts from a digital kit, and it's a vintage paper, and you can definitely use things like that on the inside cover. You could even just use graph paper and ink up the edges. It is totally up to you. You can make this as basic as you want or as crazy and out there as you want. So I cut down some scrapbook paper here, and I cut it down around 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and then that middle piece is 3.25 inches by 8.5 inches. This would be the perfect time to add lace closures if you want. I actually forgot and I glued down my pages first, but you can see that I was able to pull them up enough to get the lace underneath. And so basically you will sandwich the lace in between your scrapbook paper and the manila envelope. I cut my lace down to about 9 inches for each piece, and you can see I just sandwich it in between the scrapbook layer and manila envelope with a lot of glue. This is one of my favorite ways to add closures to my books. I think it's simple and it is functional. So I'm going to close my book and just kind of match those up to make sure that they are equal on each side. And now I decided that I wanted to decorate the inside covers a little bit. I'm going to keep it pretty basic, but I just took a library card and a glassine bag, and I decided to cut out some of the cut aparts that were in the 12 by 12 paper pad I was using, and I inked up the edges just to kind of spruce it up a little bit. So at this point, I like to punch the holes in my spine, and I have the template here that I have included. If you don't have the template or you didn't want to print it out, the measurements are listed here on the screen and down in the description box so that you can get the most, I guess, equal spacing for your two signatures. And if you want, you can do the same thing for one signature or three. You just need to have them equally spaced out. And this order that I'm doing this in, it might seem off to you if you're like, why are you punching holes if we're not ready to sew in our pages yet? This is just the order that makes sense to me, since I like to do everything that has to do with the cover at once. And by the way, if my hand movement doesn't necessarily match with what I'm saying, that's obviously because I'm doing a voiceover. So yeah, hopefully that doesn't throw anyone off. So I am going to have the template placed right now on the center of the spine. I like to pull up the two side covers just to make sure that it is exactly in the center. I punched the holes super quick with my awl there, and you can see they're nice and spaced out. Take your time with that. Now I have decided that I wanted to make a lace tassel, and the kit does come with some lace and the ring to make a tassel, so I thought I would quickly go over this with you guys. I'm going to use half of the lace from the kit for the tassel and then the other half for my book pages. I want to show you how you can take the lace and really stretch it and get the most use out of it. So I am trimming down any of the thicker pieces of lace. I have my lace cut down with some twine to the size that I want, and I'm just going to use a hot glue gun. I put a little hot glue on the ring here that I have, and I'm basically just going to layer lace, hot glue, lace, hot glue, and then I can take some twine and I will tie it around once. I do a double knot. You can use some hot glue in there to secure it if you'd like. And then I wrap it around just a couple times and I will tie it again. And then you can see it's super pretty, and I really didn't even use that much lace for this tassel. So now I'm going to use my charm clasp here, and I open up the jump ring, put my charm on, and close it. And you can see there's a lot of room on these charm rings to add other things like beads or more charms if you want, but I keep it simple, and I really like how it looks on that tassel. So we're going to move all of that aside now and start working on our pages. This is just an idea of some of the things that come in the kits, and of course if you didn't get the kit and you're just watching the tutorial, I'm showing that you can use pretty basic supplies here to create signatures, and of course I mixed in my own scrapbook paper as well. But I am going to actually coffee dye this paper just to give it a little bit more something, and I am going to start by cutting down my pages first. I wanted my pages to be a little bit smaller than the cover. I cut the pages down to 10.5 inches by 8.5 inches so that when we fold them in half, we will have 5.25 inches by 8.5, which is a little bit smaller than the cover. If you want your pages to be the same size as the cover, you can cut your pages down to 8.5 by 11 inches, which are most letter size papers anyways. On some of the pages, instead of trimming the excess off, I will just measure where the excess would be, and I will fold it in, and then you can fold your page down and you will have a simple little flip out. So I do that to some of the longer pages. I like cutting my pages down before coffee dyeing just because sometimes the coffee dyed paper will end up a little bit wrinkly or have little creases in it, and so I find that it's just a little bit easier this way. And I'm not going to coffee dye the scrapbook paper I'm using in this, just the more basic paper like the copy paper, graph paper, ledger paper, all of that. So now I am going to set down some wax paper, which I always use for coffee dyeing. This is a really simple version of coffee dyeing. So I just put some coffee into this little spray bottle that I had. It previously had some like shimmery spray in it. So this is not going to give your paper a super dark look, but it's just so quick and convenient that I really like to do it, especially if I'm just like in the middle of working on a journal. So I will just spray it, as you can see here. And then I will sometimes fold them in half, fold them in half and set them aside and continually spray, fold in half, set aside, so on and so forth. But I am going to put these in my oven to dry, and I will show you. I just put them on a really old cookie sheet. It is so old, and oh gosh, guys, don't judge my oven when I show you here in a minute. So I will just keep spraying. Some of the papers I spray more, and then some of them I just kind of lightly give a spray, and it's going to give more of a splattered look. So you can see here, got them on the cookie sheet, and I have a cupcake liner tin down there. What? I don't know what it's called. Anyways, and sometimes I will put my papers on top of the cupcake sheet because it will give your papers a really cool effect when you're all done with that. So you can kind of experiment with the different pans that you put your papers on if you'd like. So now we are all dry, and by the way, you can keep them out overnight to dry if you'd like. So I'm just going to go back through and I fold all of my pages so that they are getting closer to being ready to being put into our signatures. At this point, I am not really worrying about the order that my pages are in or anything like that. I'm just folding them so that I can make sure everything is the correct size. I will even use smaller pages in envelopes like I was showing you there. So now I want to add some lace to the edges. Now, normally I sew my lace on, but I wanted to keep this so simple. And to be honest, I really enjoyed using a hot glue gun to stick the lace on. And you can keep all of the small pieces of lace and use those as little tabs if you'd like. So I went through and I decorated my pages off camera because I did film a more in-depth video on different page decorating ideas, and I wanted to just be able to go more in depth. This is some of the ideas that I had filmed in that other video, which is included in this set. I have all kinds of fun little ideas, and hopefully that video will give you a bunch of inspiration and motivation to try out different ways. They're all really simple though, but sometimes I find that just seeing someone else's idea can really spark new ideas in your own. So check that video out if you want more on that. I have my pages ready to go, so now I am working on the order that I want my signatures to be in. I have 20 total pages here. It is totally up to you how many pages you want in your books, but that seems to be a good number for this size of journal. So 20 total pages, but once you fold them in half, that doubles. So each signature, which there are going to be 2, will have 10 of those pages folded in half. So I'm just kind of playing around, and I sped this up quite a bit because it did take me a while to figure out which order I wanted them to be in. It is now time to bind. The things that I have out are some paper clips. I have my 2 signatures. I have my binding signature template printed out just to make it really easy. And I have, if you want the measurements for this as well, if you did not want to print that out, I will have that on the screen and down below. It's going to be the same measurements we used, obviously, for the cover. I have a needle, I have some embroidery floss here, and I have an awl to punch the holes. And if you don't have an awl, you can use something like a thumbtack or a big needle. And then I have an old book that I used earlier to punch the holes into. So go ahead and use your paper clips to hold your pages together. And don't be shy, guys. Use a lot of paper clips so that everything is very secure and not going to move. You really want to make sure that that very center is just very tight together. If you don't have the pages paper clipped together really well, you might find that when you are sewing the signatures into your book, that you end up punching a hole through the wrong spot, which is fine. It happens to everyone and it's not the end of the world. But here we go. So I have the template, and as you can see here, it is longer than our pages. I did make it 9 inches tall in case anyone wants to make a different size page. All you need to do is make sure that you have the template centered in your signature. That middle hole, you want it as close to the middle of your signature. You don't have to, I mean, I'm not even measuring it here. As you can see, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So just make sure to center that in your signature and make sure that the top of the template is at the top of your signature. I can't tell you how many times I have sewn in a signature wrong or actually just punched the holes in it upside down. They are equally spaced, so it shouldn't make a difference, but I don't know, I swear it does. So now I'm going to punch the holes. Just make sure you punch that hole all the way through. And let me give you some cool different angles here. So for sewing in the signatures, I'm going to use some embroidery floss here. I also love a waxed linen, which I will have linked below. And to measure out the length, I just measure 1.5 to 2 times the length of your signature. That gives you more than enough. We are going to start by sewing in the last signature, so on that last row there. So grab that signature and thread your needle. I don't double thread it, but I do leave a teeny little tail hanging off there. And I don't knot it either. So you're going to start from the inside middle hole out. And then you are going to, if you want to secure that little tail down with washi tape, you can. We're going to go in through the top hole to the inside. And then we're going to go down to the bottom hole to the outside. And then back in through the middle hole. And I tried to give you guys different angles, but it's hard because I move around so much when I am sewing these in. And then once you are back in through that middle hole, you want to make sure that one side of the end is on one side of the middle and the other is on the other side. And then tie that. We will do that one more time. So you're going to sew from the inside middle hole to the outside. And then you will go back up to the top hole and sew into the inside, and then down to the bottom hole to the outside, and back in through the center where we started. Go ahead and tie your 2 ends together, remove your paper clips, and you are done. I love the feel of the pages once everything is sewn in. It is so much fun to flip through and see what everything looks like. I add my tassel and charm as the finishing touch. I just love how a charm looks on the spine of a book. I think it's so pretty. There we go, guys. We did it. I really hope that this was helpful to you guys. I hope that it showed you how you can take some pretty basic supplies, add in a few of your very favorite papers or paper collection. You could even make embellishments to go along with this, and you can create a really cool looking journal. And I love that this isn't even a hardcover, and I just love how it turned out. And I do include another tutorial, and I show you how to make more of a traveler's notebook journal. It's actually called a junk dory. And I do actually go over a few different ways that you can decorate that journal using the basic supplies. So be sure to check that out and see which style you prefer, or maybe you like both like I do. You can also check out my 10-page decorating ideas for more ideas on decorating. And don't forget to take advantage of the digital kit that I have included here for you guys to use. So thanks once again. Feel free to leave messages down below, questions, because even though this is an exclusive tutorial, I will be answering comments. So feel free to leave some down below, guys. And here's a quick peek of the junk dory that I created using things from the kit and basic supplies as well. All right, guys, bye.